This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Do you play FanDuel and feel like you aren't creating consistent money-making lineups? Go over to the DFS Doctors on Twitter at the DFS Doctors and DM them with promo code Detroit Sports to get a free trial for their analytically formulated 70% lifetime profit rate NFL and NBA lineups. The whole purpose of playing daily fantasy sports is to get out there and compete and give yourself a chance to win. So go over to the DFS Doctors. Let them help you. They have analysts on staff that look at the best optimal lineup that you can put out there to win money. So why not take advantage? At the DFS Doctors, promo code Detroit Sports.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code DETROIT to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
And welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito Geronimo Chirco, alongside mi padre, my father that is, Jerome Joseph Chirco, and we are recording at the Delta Resort while we're self-quarantining because of the coronavirus pandemic. And here to talk baseball still, though. Dad, how are you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
We are staying tough here right now, hanging in there and staying safe as much as possible right now, to say the least. But talking about some baseball now, and obviously the MLB season would have started tomorrow for the Tigers and everybody else. Tigers on the road in Cleveland. Would have been great, right, to watch the Tigers start the season. And the home opening day for the Tigers would have been March 30th at Comerica Park. All of that is now not going to happen, obviously. So we move into this now, a conversation about kind of yesteryear, in so many words. And I want to start with this for you, Deb, before we really dive into Major League Baseball this season. And John McElroy, by the way, my producer, my co-host typically for Tigers Talk, asked me to pose this question to you. One game that if you could right now rewatch, what game would that be for you? And try to make it a single game and not a single playoff series, let's say.
I would probably say, as of right now, 1968, Game 7. Tigers beat the Cardinals, and the reason I say that, I think it was because it meant so much to the city. I mean, I was only 11 years old, but
so you're dating yourself now a little bit,
yes,
too, Dad,
yes.
by the way, by saying that.
Yes, I am, and it was they came from behind. They were down 3-1. They had Denny McLain winning 31 games that year. They were known for their come from behind heroics. Mickey Lolich, a good pitcher, maybe not a great pitcher, wins 3 games in the World Series. So that was probably the most memorable game. What it meant to the city. Got to remember in '67 there was the riots, and as a little boy I remember National Guard helicopters flying over the city and seeing that and being scared. And then the very next summer, the Tigers kind of took us out of the doldrums and won the World Series. So I'd have to say, even though 84 was great because I got to see that team grow up, come from, as all farm hands and with Sparky's influence, become world champions. I still got to go with 68, Game 7.
And then, Dad, for you in 68, you were a student inside the classroom watching those games. So the World Series games, now to date you once again, and you said it already yourself, so it's not really giving away your age. You were 11 inside the classroom, and you told me that you were able to watch these games because World Series games back then were played actually on weekday afternoons, too. Can you talk about that experience for yourself?
Yeah, correct. That was like thinking back how they gear everything to national TV now. It was probably better in the long run at the time. Maybe not for ratings and all that, but I don't think they were worried about that as much. But it was really neat experience. Our whole school, they reeled TVs into each room, and our school was, a grade school, 8 grades.
St. Veronica's.
St. Veronica's in East Detroit or East Point, Michigan. And we all got to, have candy and watch the games right in your classroom. And it was just a crazy experience. It goes to show you how much, baseball was probably still the number one sport in the land at the time. So it meant so much. And it's October and, the weather's still good. And it was quite an experience. And I still to this day think they should play a day game, even on a weekend, but I know it'll never happen.
So kids that were not even sports fans or Tigers fans enjoyed those games. You had to watch. You were stuck in the classroom, right, on a weekday, school day. But, kids that weren't into sports and weren't into baseball, right, all of a sudden, girls and boys both, right, got into the Tigers and into watching that. And that has to be a lifelong memory for everybody, regardless of the fact if you were a Tigers fan at that time, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was, everybody was involved. My teacher that I had for that grade, wasn't a big baseball person, but everybody was into it. Parents, everybody, the priests, the nuns. It was just a thing that the whole city, took in.
So then in 84, you were 27 at the time, correct? When the Tigers won in 84. Now, they won in easier fashion. So how did that compare to watching the Tigers win in 1968 for you, when you were younger, once again, in 1968?
Well, it had its own drama. I got to see that team grow up. I got to see those guys come from the minors, in 79 and, with Whitaker and Trammell, and then, piece by piece add on and mature and go through the hardships of losing. Because in 83, they were a good team. They won 90-some games, but not quite. And, they had Sparky, and Sparky had made a promise that in 5 years, which 84 was his 5th year, he guaranteed that he'd win the World Series, which was quite a guarantee. And, knowing that they had one of the best managers in baseball and that young core, it was just rewarding to see it all come together.
So you were a fan, obviously, of the Oakland A's in the 1970s when the A's were dominant, the best team in baseball outside of the Reds, right? But the Reds and A's matched up in the World Series, too, during the 70s. So you saw Sparky kind of up close and personal, right, from a TV and radio perspective, tuning into the World Series then. So you kind of already knew about how great Sparky was, Dad, as a baseball fan growing up then. So when the Tigers got him, how great of a move did you think it was right then and there?
Well, I can say this, honestly. When they got him, I knew they were going to win the World Series. I knew they had an excellent chance of winning because they had the players in place. But sometimes you need that manager that knows how to handle veterans and youth. And he was one of those guys. He had the experience. He had gone through it with the Big Red Machine, the Reds. So I was confident.
And how about the greatest managerial performance, which we did talk about previously this week off the air too. And I'll let you get into it, what you picked. But Sparky in that 84 season, for you, where does that rank among the best managerial performances that you've seen in your lifetime?
It's right up there. I mean, he was a great manager. And again, he knew how to handle that the blend of youth and veterans, and like a guy like Kirk Gibson, who was kind of cocky, out of control. By 84, he was a company man. I mean, Sparky had him under his wing, and he respected Sparky. So when you earn the respect of a guy like Sparky, you seem to, buy into the program, and then he had his cool, calm, younger players like Whitaker Trammell, who were your 1-2 hitters in the lineup, and and they had Jack Morris, who was a big game pitcher even then, and it just all came together.
So let me ask you then. Do you think the Tigers would have won that World Series in 1984 without Sparky Anderson as their manager?
Well, I'm going to say no, but that's a tough question. That's a really tough question. I mean, 83 was their big learning curve because they won 90-some games and finished second to the Orioles, and I think they were gradually getting better. But you got to get over that hump. You to win is a big last step. So I don't want to say that Sparky was this guru manager that they were going to have to rely on, but that's a tough question. I'm going to go that with Sparky, they were over the hump type team.
So he put them over the hump, but they were already really, really good, really talented, really deep, a young core, great young core. So they were kind of due to win, and some people such as yourself, I know, saw it happening. Transitioning now to me now, as a young kid growing up, seen a lot of bad baseball. Born in 1993 here. Until 05, the Tigers did nothing at all. No playoff appearances. Then 06 happens. And unfortunately, we weren't season ticket holders anymore. We had gotten rid of the tickets, which is something, but it's true, right before 06 happened. And we went to some games in 06. But anyways, my point is, Jim Leyland comes on board. Miraculous season. I never saw it coming. You never saw it coming. Many Tigers fans, and realistically, probably 100% of the Tigers fans, true Tigers fans, did not see Jim Leyland having that huge of an impact in year number one. Yet he did. They won the American League pennant. They reached the Fall Classic, ended up losing that World Series. But that season for you now you had talked to me off the air about that and how great the managerial job was by Leyland. Can you reflect upon that now? And just to reiterate now to all the listeners out there, you had said that was the greatest managerial performance you had seen by any Tiger skipper, correct?
Correct. To take that team that had lost 119 games, 3 years before, and yeah, they got Verlander and Zamaya that year, but those are two rookie pitchers, and he took that team, and at one point, they were 40 games over 500. That was unspoken. I mean, no one would have thought it, He took that team, and I know early in the year of that year, they had lost a game, and he brought them in the clubhouse and chewed them out and yelled and screamed and told them that, they have to believe in themselves and this team can win. And I truly believe they started believing it. They led the league in ERA there. I think
40 games above 500, like we talked about.
40 games above 500.
Unimaginable almost, no matter how much talent you have.
Think about this. I don't think even their World Series teams and any team after that got to 40 games above 500 in the next 10 years.
And those teams were better, right?
And those teams had better lineups.
People forget Miguel Cabrera wasn't on that 06 team. I think people assume that now.
Right.
They didn't have that great middle-of-the-order slugger back in 06,
right.
realistically
Yeah, their lineup
speaking.
wasn't exactly top-quality lineup. So, yeah, he took that team. He molded it under himself. And they pretty much, I guess they overachieved. But, they still made the playoffs, won 95 games. And I would say that for 1 year, I would say that was probably as far as the Tigers go, that was the best managerial job I've ever seen.
So similarities now, Dad, and differences between Sparky and Jim Leyland. What are those for you? Because I think there are so many striking similarities between the two dudes as well.
Yeah, well, Sparky had the saying, my way or the highway. And I think you had to get on board. You had to believe in and go from there. And I think both of them had that kind of mentality. They were players, managers, But in the same respect, I think, you had to buy into the system. And I think both of them treated their players, certain players on their team, a little differently, which I think always seems to be the good mix, the good way to mold a championship team. But they had that my way or the highway mentality.
And I think you should treat everybody differently. Like we see now with the Lions and Matt Patricia inside that Lions locker room. He's trying to mold them all into a certain way, and he's kind of making the players tight-lipped and different than they really are outside of the locker room. And I think that's a recipe for failure. I think in the long term, it's not a recipe for success. And I think you see the most successful managers and head coaches in the NFL and whatever sports league it may be, those are the types of guys that I think allow their players to be themselves inside and outside the clubhouse or the locker room. Can you reflect upon that too?
Yes, I agree totally. I don't think you can treat every player the same. Yeah, you can have rules that govern the clubhouse, that in curfews but I think sometimes you have to treat players a little differently. That 25th guy on the bench probably isn't going to be treated the same way as your star player. So you do have to bend the rules a little bit, and I think once you get that across to your team, they kind of go with it.
So 06 was terrific for Jim Leyland. He managed until 2014, made one more trip to the Fall Classic while Tiger skipper. 2012 would be that season. Hugely disappointing, and we kind of talked about that off the air as well, that was more disappointing, I think, as Tigers fans, looking at that season with that talent on that ball club, and then to get swept, and in the fashion of not even hitting. I mean, the team just was horrible hitting throughout that series and got swept eventually. So for you, when you compare and contrast, Dad, 2006 to 2012, 2012 was more difficult to watch, wasn't it?
Yes, because, I mean, when you can't hit and you can't score runs and your clutch players are slumping, I mean, let's face it, if you can't score runs, you're not going to win anything. You got to score runs. So, it's a little disheartening to know that, the other team, we had some couple good pitching performances in that 12 World Series, but if you don't score runs, what good is it? So it's very frustrating.
Transitioning to this now, so the current state of Major League Baseball, all these different pro sports leagues have been suspended or haven't even started, such as the Major League Baseball campaign, which once again would have started tomorrow. So now that's not going to be the case. So we look at the schedule and what could be and when the season could start, Dad. And nobody knows right now because there's so much uncertainty regarding this virus. But from your perspective, how many games do you think Major League Baseball should play and to warrant them playing a season this year?
Well, I'm hearing stories of playing the whole 162. I think, it's ridiculous. And playing baseball in December in warm sites and neutral sites. I mean, I was thinking, when I heard that immediately today, I thought of Veterans Day, November 11th this past year. It snowed. So, I mean, who's going to be at these games in November, important or not, and how many games are going to be important to what teams? So why not just play a maximum 120 game schedule and throw some double headers in there? They're going to lose money anyway. So if there's a double header, one day, back-to-back games, double header, and the gate for the game is going to be, they're not going to make as much money. It doesn't even matter.
And now here we go with this conversation. So when you were growing up, too, there were true doubleheaders, right? Not just a makeup game, play it after one that was regularly scheduled, right? Can you talk about that, too, and how cool that was for you as a baseball fan growing up?
Well, it was a bonus, 2 games for one. It was, they used to have twilight doubleheaders, which started at 5:30. And that was a big draw because, it was a night game, and they usually had a good team, and you could get 2 games for the price of one, which in those days you could have bought a $3 or $2 bleacher seat and saw 2 games. It's not even it's crazy. And then on Sundays they would have the double headers, likewise, and the second game started 20 minutes after the first. And, 2 for 1. It was a bargain for people to go. It drew fans, and it was long before free agency and multi-million-dollar contracts. So I guess it was more feasible. But what a great promotional thing it was for baseball in the day. But I understand 2 games, it might be a little grueling, or back-to-back doubleheaders or something like that right now to make up games, but I don't see why they can't play a few of them.
Well, what a great treat it was for you then, right? Any kind of baseball fan back then, young, old, you name it, loved that because it was truly 2 for 1. The second game was already taken into account with your ticket for the first one. So it was terrific back then, and if you're going to play 100 games, 120 only, you might have to schedule some doubleheaders. And I think it would incentivize the fan to come to the ballpark, especially nowadays with the downtrodden ratings, people not wanting to go to the ballpark. And not just for a bad team like the Tigers, Dad, who could use any kind of special promotion they can throw out there to draw fans to the ballpark currently.
Yeah, correct. First of all, I'm not Mr. Cold Weather baseball fan. And now you're going to play games in November, December, even a neutral site. So what does that do for the fan? You're going to play a meaningless. I guess I don't even know if it should be meaningless, but even a wild card game. Let's say a 1-game playoff in a neutral site, and it's not even in the home city of the teams that are playing. Talk about dumping on the fans. What good is that?
And at what point you think this year will we get to the point, Dad, where it'll be inconceivable almost for the season to even start? And let you think for a second, because this season might not even start until mid-July at the very earliest. It could be that, it could be the start of August. Best case scenario, it sounds like mid-June. So for you, at what point will you say this season it's a lost cause? It's not going to happen.
I would say if seriously you can't be back in your foot, because apparently they're going to play a 4-week camp or 4-week spring training by the time they start. If you're not involved in that camp in the month of June, I say it's not going to happen.
And it's sad but true, you have to scrap the season. But obviously this coronavirus, it trumps everything else. It transcends sports and trumps sports because it's much more important. Health right now and the safety of everybody and well-being of everybody is priority number 1. So Commissioner Rob Manfred, the Major League Baseball commissioner, has to make some important decisions moving forward. And it might be the cancellation of the Major League Baseball season for 2020 ultimately. And with that being said, I want to ask you this now, I think, to wrap up this week's episode of Tigers Talk 2 with my special guest, me Padre, Jerome Joseph Chirco. If you were Commissioner Manfred, Dan, and I'll let you think about this one as well, but if you were Commissioner Rob Manfred, what is one thing you would make happen that hasn't already happened up to this point in the history, almost you can say in the history of Major League Baseball? And I'll let you think about it to kind of help out. Because once again, the ratings are bad.
Now we're talking about regarding this year?
Regarding baseball in general moving forward. So not just to impact 2020, but moving forward as well.
Well, I'm gonna just say right off the bat, this is the year that, we're going to see more than likely a shortened season, but, they want to expand with 3 wild card teams. And, I go back to what I've said for years. Let's shorten the season. If we're going to expand wild card teams, and why not 2 weeks less of baseball so that you could play a meaningful playoff? Not, that wild card game is very nice, don't get me wrong, but in the same respect, if you're going to add teams, which, number one, I don't know if that's the greatest idea.
Well, I'm going to get to this. Yeah, does that water down the competition pool of teams? If you allow all these teams to make the playoffs now all of a sudden, doesn't that kind of take away from the luster of the playoffs a bit, at least, too?
Yeah, because, baseball's one of their strengths always was the playoffs were, didn't involve, a lot of teams. So I think you're diluting it a little bit right there. And then you're going to play 162 games. And, jump into that. And then they got these. Now we're starting the season in March. Why can't we end the season September 15th and start a nice playoff that's meaningful and maybe play a best of 3 or something like that? So, I'm going to go back to shortening the season. I know that this is a money thing, but they make so much money with TV and contracts anyway. That would be one of my first things if I was the commissioner.
And then you brought up really quick, Dad, how the season starts now in March. Now, it's late March, not early March, so I guess it's better than having it start March 1. But still, I think we both agree upon the fact that baseball is starting too early now. Don't you think? I mean, because it's not good weather. For a lot of Midwest cities and all throughout the country, you see a lot of bad weather, and you still can get snow even in parts of the Midwest, such as in Michigan. I mean, it just happened recently, actually, this past week or earlier in the week. So Detroit can still suffer bad temps, cold weather, snow, bad weather, just all together. So don't you think there could be a way and should be a way to start the season 2 later so we can have better weather come opening day?
Yeah, I kind of have mixed emotions. The March thing I can live with, and they can, again, I know someone's going to say, well, it's almost impossible, but, let's play that first series in L.A., as much as possible. Don't let the A's play the Angels. Maybe, help us out a little bit weather-wise. To me, it's much better to start cold than to finish cold. I think if you're playing baseball, more meaningful baseball when it's, late October, November, I think is worse than sacrifice really some meaningless games earlier in the year. Let's not start March 1st. I got it. But I can live with this March 26th starting, as long as you're ending the season to take advantage of, good weather and good playoff baseball.
Yeah, preserving the weather for late in the season come playoff time. And now there's been the discussion about neutral site World Series games, actually, like playing the World Series at Dodger Stadium, just because of the fact that the season could be prolonged so much because of its delayed start, if it even happens. I mean, what do you think about that possibility now, how baseball is playing with this idea of having neutral game World Series games?
Well, I don't like it, just the fact that they're doing it to extend the season and also to dodge the weather. And here we go again. So, so let's just say the American League Championship Series is Boston and New York, and the game, neither have a dome, so the game is where? In Toronto? So
it kind of sucks for the fans of those teams, right?
Yeah.
The teams, true fans that go to their home ballparks, then they can't even go to these World Series games, right? It sounds like for a lot of them probably too, Dad.
I don't see the good in that.
No, it's not too conceivable because you take away from the home fans of these clubs, the fans that deserve to go to the World Series games, right? They've rooted on these teams for so long, a lot of them at least, where they deserve to be there for their World Series games. And especially, once again, what if it's a team that hasn't made the Fall Classic in such a long time? Think about it. Now, Cleveland just made it recently, but a team like that hasn't won a World Series since 1949, but plays in a Midwest city. So it's cold come late in the year, right? So where are they going to play their games? At a neutral site. But then how about the true Cleveland fans? Are they going to show up to that neutral site if it's in L.A.? Probably not a lot of them, right, that have the money. You got to have the money first, too, to be able to even travel, and make that happen.
Yeah, so I'll give you, for instance, Cleveland Indians haven't won since 1949, I believe.
Yeah.
So they win the World Series, and the clinching game is is in Toronto.
It sounds messed up on the surface,
what
right?
What is that?
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. I don't think it can happen, but we will see what happens because the season, we don't even know if it's going to happen at this point. But I know my dad, if he was a commissioner now, Commissioner Jerome Joseph Chirco would implement a shorter season. And I think there's a lot of merit to it, but like you said, Dad, you said it yourself, it's about the money. At the end of the day, the bottom line is the money and how much they can cash in from the TV deals. And right now, with what they have for these TV deals, well, it's for a longer portion of the year. So because of that, the shortening of the season probably won't happen for the foreseeable future. Would love it to happen, though, Dad, and always love having you on for Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company.
Well, thank you very much. And now I've made it 3 times here in less than 1 calendar year. So I'm waiting for that first paycheck.
Very surprising. You probably won't ever get the paycheck, but hey, 3 times a charm, and glad to have you on once again, and we'll talk again soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And to all of you guys out there, stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay at home. Adios.